Hello, and welcome back to the Quantum Health Connection podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm your host, Vanessa Baldwin, with my incredible co-host, Heather Crimson. And today we have a fantastic guest. So excited to introduce you to Amanda Steencken. She is awesome. You guys are going to love all of her information that she's going to share with us today. She is the founder of Horaios Wellness. I did not pronounce that right, but she will eventually repronounce it correctly for me. And she's also certified in the applied quantum biology, currently in naturopathy school, and has a very big science background of anatomy and things like that she'll share with you guys. But Amanda, welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you here today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, ladies. It's great. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you for taking your time because I do believe that the medicine that you bring, Amanda, is really profound and it really kind of takes us back into our true self, like our humanity, the root, the primalness of our development. And I love how your approach also is it encompasses the spiritual, right, with the water and the fascia. So anyway, we want to start at the beginning though, before we get into all of that stuff. Vanessa, what are the questions you want to ask her about her background in particular?
Well, yeah, let's start with your background. Like, how did you get to where you are now? You don't have to give us everything, but a little synopsis of how did you get here?
Yeah, it's a nice windy road in true health fashion. I started as a musician. I was in college for a piano performance degree,
Mm.
but starting in my teens, I had health issues. I I ended up with what was diagnosed as juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. It involved my hands, and so I was having trouble playing the piano. And so halfway through my college years, I switched majors and ended up graduating with a degree in music composition. But dealing with that and with chronic pain was something that kind of stayed with me, right? It affects you. It affects the fascia. It affects everything. Um, Thankfully, though, and I'm really, really thankful for this, I met the right people along the way, got me through. I got through graduate school. I actually got out of music and into biomedical sciences because of that. And
Mm.
so I'm originally from Argentina. I did my undergrad there, but switching to biomedical sciences is what brought me here to the States. And that's where I got into a PhD program. I worked through that whole thing for 6 years. I did my thesis in spinal cord injury topics. And throughout that time, I was able to connect with some very important and very helpful doctors in the system, rheumatologists, and so on and so forth. I took some medication, got inflammation under control, got through that whole thing, met my husband there, who is now my husband, got married. And as we were getting ready to have kids, I was able to wean off the drugs that I was on that had brought the inflammation under control so that I could live life without too much pain.
Mm.
Um, we have two beautiful kids. And then that takes me all the way to, I don't know, late 30s, right? I'm almost 50 now. Um, I threw my back out
Mm.
and I was walking crooked. And I went to my physical therapist, who is now my mentor, and I said, "Hey, Dave, can you help me?" He's like, "Yes, I can." And he got me on the table, on one of the massage tables that he had in his office there, and he had me lie on my back to the best of my ability, and he showed me how to do what I now know as the windshield wipers.
Windshield wipers,
Is
yeah.
one of the classic moves in rhythmic movement training, BRMT. I was like, he said, just make sure your toes meet at the middle and find a rhythm, go fast, go slow, whatever works for you. And he walked off. Some other patient somewhere else. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Comes back. What is this, Dave? What are we doing? Um, don't worry about it. How do you feel? I feel weird. I said, okay, great. That's a great answer. Let's do it again. And little by little, he started rolling in other movements that Vanessa, now you're familiar because you took the course.
Mhm.
Rocking gently, really weird. What I was surprised by was the fact that some of them looked easy, but when I went to do them, I couldn't.
Yes, that's so
What,
true. I can relate to that. It's
what
like
is
it's
this?
like it's
I
so
should be able to
easy.
do this. I should be able to rock like a baby. What's going on?
Yeah.
And Dave is great. He's like, yeah, exactly. That's good. That's good, Amanda. Keep going. Anyway, fast forward 4 or 5 years, I found out what it was that he was doing. we were using it with our kids also. And I took all the courses. I met Kate Wagner. She's the US distributor here in the country for Blomberg Rhythmic Movement Training, BRMT USA. And anyway, I now affectionately refer to BRMT as my gateway drug into a whole new way of looking at the human body,
Mm.
a whole new way of looking at health, not just through the Western allopathic medicine of drugs and surgical interventions that's so mechanistic and so chemical that I was trained in, that my husband, who's a physician, was trained in, and so on and so forth. But looking at the body, looking at my body as the bioelectric entity that it is, right?
Yes.
And starting to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And so anyway, one thing leads to the next. I'm taking the BRMT courses to get, certified. I knew that there was a career change at the horizon. All these years I've been teaching at the medical school, anatomy, gross anatomy, loving it. I love teaching. I love interacting with other people, young adults. It's fascinating to have these intellectually stimulating conversations with a lot of them, with my colleagues. But I needed a change, and so I resigned in 2021 and went back to school and have been working on a degree in traditional naturopathic medicine ever since. Because it's self-paced online,
Perfect.
um, it's easy for me to get sidetracked. And so I'm not doing it as consistently as I should have, but I'm almost done. But my sidetracks were good because one of them was the BRMT situation and the other one was the applied quantum biology
Mhm.
rabbit hole that we're all familiar with, right? That's how we met.
Mhm.
But that really stirred the pot. That revolutionized my whole way of looking at this in a way that I don't know that I'll ever be able to put into words.
Mhm.
But BRMT planted the seed. Kate Wagner, I'll never forget, in the first level one that she taught me that I was in, she said, we're not just chemical and mechanical beings, we're bioelectric. I was
Yeah,
like,
it's
what do you mean?
awesome.
What do you mean bioelectric? So anyway, start churning, you start thinking, you start realizing. And it's been a beautiful journey. And in the process, I realized I have to share this with people. I have to preach it from the mountaintops. I can't shut up. I can't just harass my family with this. And so forever and ever, I said, I'm never going to work with people on a clinical basis. Forget it. I'm a teacher. I love teaching from the big auditorium thing that I don't know. And here I am doing clinical work and loving it. And it's amazing. And I'm putting little courses together here and there. And I give community talks here and there to support people in my community. But I'm really, really enjoying the one-on-one, the small group coaching. It's just a beautiful way of giving
Mm.
this
Mhm.
gift that I was given too. And I turned it into a business, Horaios Wellness. Horaios is a Greek word. Um, if you stick with me long enough, I'll teach you how to roll the R's.
Eventually I'll
Horario,
get there.
Horario reminds me of like a schedule or a calendar, but
Yeah,
that's
so horario is the
yeah,
Spanish word for schedule, but horarios, the Greek
right.
origin, means the perfect time.
Oh.
And it's a word that's been with me since my teens.
Mm.
And so people told me, oh, you got to call it something different. It's too difficult to pronounce. Blah, blah. I tried other names and I kept coming back to this for my business. And I'm sticking with it because really this is, I believe, a perfect time. For me, it's been a perfect time for healing, for restoration, for renewal. But I believe that what I have to offer is coming at the perfect time for other people.
Mm.
Yeah, this is so beautiful, Amanda, because that name chose you, I believe,
Yeah.
Mhm.
early on, and so it's still speaking to you. And then as far as working with clients directly, like I can relate to that because I think is when the work is when what the vehicle, the means, the spiritual aspect of what you're doing speaks to you and it moves you and it inspires you and nourishes you, then it's not really work. It's just it's an offering. Right.
Yeah.
So I can see how you were called to do that and that it reinvigorated you and it drew you back in, which is that's beautiful. And I think that's a critical aspect of healing because guess what? Your energy is really a big picture or a big part of the means by which clients are able to then surrender and relax into their own healing. That has to be that bidirectional communication energetically.
Yeah.
And I think when people are struggling with their own way of being a healer, that's part of what could be hard on them for one, and then also the client or the patient or whatever you're working with can feel that energetically. So anyway, that's a little tangent, but
No, but my biggest concern when I was debating whether to start a health coaching business was the burnout factor because I've seen it time and time again in the healthcare realm with doctors all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember asking Dave, my mentor, what do you think of this? He's a PT by training who's got all kinds of other tools under his belt. And I've been apprenticing in his space now for over 2 years, and he's been just incredible. And I learn every time I go. And um, he said, what do you mean burnout?
Ah,
When you're doing what you're called to do, it doesn't happen. And I said,
yes.
because I asked him, how do you manage this? How do you make sure you don't burn out? And he said, well, I'm doing what I was called to do. So what I've found is that every interaction that I have, not only is me blessing them, it's not only me helping them, they are helping me. Our
Mm-hmm.
nervous systems are in sync, in coherence. And so I'm gaining so much. I start doing certain BRMT things. There are some hands-on positions or any other PT thing that he does. And all of a sudden, my stomach starts gurgling. That's telling me that my parasympathetic is happy right now. So I'm getting benefit too. And so there is no burnout, he said. And that stuck with me because I am experiencing that now. I can say, for real, that this is true.
How it should be. That
Everything
is
is,
beautiful.
yeah, everything is energy and you're always passing the energy back and forth. So
Yeah.
they're in the more parasympathetic, then they're passing it back to you. Like it just, that makes so much sense to me. Like you just literally bouncing off of energy, bouncing off of each other, really is
Yep.
what it sounds like to me.
Yep.
So
It
yeah.
reminds me, Amanda, of also the gentleman I trained with for several years, Craig Penner, who teaches a model that it's a blend of somatic experiencing and EMDR. That's what I was saying. I'm sitting right in front of the client, tapping on their knees, and we're really working deep in the body with noticing the sensation. And then I'm also working with the cognitive appraisal of all that. Anyways, it's a really potent model. And in the training early on, one of my classmates said, how do you, like, it's just so much. It's like, how do you not be exhausted at the end of the day? He goes, what? He goes, I'm juiced. Like, I'm so alive and filled up by doing this quote work. And that just is exactly what you were speaking to. I was like, oh my gosh.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I am tired, especially after a full day of seeing people back to back, but
Yeah.
it's not the burnout tired. I've been there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, I'm ready to rest right now. I'm gonna veg, I'm gonna hang out, I'm gonna put my blue blockers on and watch something on the TV. I don't know. It's different, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And all the while I'm still healing. I'm still working through my own layers. And it's
Yeah.
it's really, really neat.
Because we all have many, many layers to go. And the healing is like, I always say it's like more like a never-ending journey. Like people think that's like an ending to it. I'm like, I think we're always healing. That's my opinion.
Mhm.
Um, I want to ask you too, like obviously you took the quantum biology collective and you not collective certification. How has that impacted your life doing that? Adding in all
Oh
of
my
the quantum
gosh.
biology pieces. Yeah, I mean, just a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, UVA windows every morning and I are besties.
And
I
why?
mean,
Why is that so important to you, Amanda?
it's essential. It's the time of day when I open my pharmacy,
Mm.
my own endogenous pharmacy to make all the goodies in the dose that I need, dopamine, serotonin, melatonin for tonight, uh, hormones, thyroid hormone, obviously sun rising too. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I've missed a sunrise in the last 3, 4 years. I'm addicted to it now, and it's a cool thing to be addicted to because it has ripple effects that are good throughout the rest of my life and my body and my family, and
Mhm.
um, it's essential. It's it's
It
become
is
a way of
essential.
life.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let our listeners know, Amanda, like, why is primitive reflex, well, what is it in a nutshell? And then why should people want to know about it and someday seek that service out for themselves?
Mhm. So primitive reflexes are these movements that we do naturally during development, the first 9 months in utero, and then during the first up to 24 months postnatally. And they are reflexive movements. So our cortex is not voluntarily saying, oh, I'm going to move my hand to grab my binky to take it out, or I'm going to, you know, tense this muscle to tense the other muscle to roll over so that then I can crawl. It's all happening in response to stimuli from the environment, whether it's gravity. Gravity's the main one in the moment of birth. But in utero, you have vibrations, you have other kinds of sound, auditory waves, light coming through mom's stomach, heartbeat, the pressure of the amniotic fluid around the fetus as the fetus is growing and developing. All of these provide stimuli to the nervous system that cause the nervous system to respond.
Mhm.
And these first responses, these first reflexes are what people have called primitive reflexes. And these primitive reflexes are essential because they develop on a specific time frame, one right after the other, and one has to develop first in order for the next one to appear, and so on and so forth. And they set the stage for the development of what we call postural reflexes. So our ability to sit, our ability to stand, our ability to walk, alternating right and left. My dog just came in. Um, our ability to sit and pay attention and everything that goes on in that process of a kid in school sitting and paying attention to the teacher and the board and all that kind of stuff. All of those abilities that we have started out on this foundational framework of primitive reflexes that develop, are active while everything else is developing, and then they disappear. They go quietly into the night so that the postural reflexes that are controlled by higher levels in the brain can come in and do their thing. The reason this is an important thing to know is because most of the behavioral things that we're seeing in kids right now, and therefore most of the behavioral and emotional things that we're seeing in adults, can be traced back to a primitive reflex that is active again. Okay, so in other words, the postural network that would control the primitive reflex and say, okay, you don't have to do anything anymore, somehow has been taken offline. And so now this primitive reflex has the ability to wake up and be active again. And that introduces dissonance into the system is the way I word it. This isn't how BRMT would teach it, but it introduces a discord that inhibits or prevents the system from linking up to
Like
other layers.
like an incoherence, like a poor communication.
Exactly. In fact, it's a lack of communication
Yeah.
because the way Harold Blomberg, the Swedish psychiatrist who came up with this model, describes it as or talks about it as is we're born with all the layers of the brain in place, but these basic layers are not talking to each other yet. What happens postnatal during those first 24 months is the different layers of the brain stem, the basal ganglia, the limbic system, and then the cortex start figuring out how to talk to each other and how to have conversations with each other. And so then what's happening down here, the brain stem informs what my cortex is going to do. And so if my brain stem is properly integrated and communicating with all the levels point north, then my prefrontal cortex can help me when I'm 18 make the proper choice to not drive while I'm drunk, or to not drink and get drunk in the first place, or to, when I'm 10, sit and pay attention in school instead of bouncing off the walls because I can't because I have wet ants in my pants. All of these things are happening because the layers are talking to each other. When they're not talking to each other, primitive reflexes come back online again. That's when we end up with all kinds of issues. And the most foundational issue of them all is a dysregulated autonomic nervous system. And so
Right.
anxiety, depression, and everything that exists on that continuum.
hmm I'm curious, what do you think is the reason why these reflexes would become unintegrated? Like what causes that to happen? Like what are
There's
the
a variety of reasons. And the reason why this resonated with me as I was studying quantum biology was that one of the most powerful ones, and Dr. Blomberg figured this out even before quantum biology was a thing in the health sphere, is non-native EMFs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Non-native EMFs, any toxin introduced into the system, whether in the form of frequencies, so junk light, junk EMFs in general, toxins in the form of chemicals, so vaccines, vaccine injuries, heavy metals that the system can't clear. Excuse me.
No worries.
Go
Dogs
ahead, Cosmo.
can need us to go in and out and open doors. It's all
You
good.
guys can cut this out too, okay?
It's all good.
And he pops in and then he starts whining.
Yeah. So go ahead. You were talking about the things that were, could make the reflexes be unintegrated.
Yeah, so any toxin introduced to the system, whether it's a chemical type toxin like junk food, excessive sugar, highly processed foods, glyphosate and gluten, all that kind of stuff, electromagnetic frequency toxins, junk light, but also emotional toxins. So that's where trauma,
Mhm,
whether it's little t or big T trauma,
mhm,
what we can decide whatever falls into those two categories. We'll introduce dissonance into the system. We'll introduce toxins into the system, and that causes these the autonomic nervous system to do what it knows to do what it has to do to keep us alive, which is to go into a fight, flight, freeze response.
Hmm.
But in the process of doing so, all these other things become dysregulated and discombobulated, and primitive reflexes become active again.
Wow,
mhm,
that's so fascinating. It just makes so much sense of in the, like, say, the emotional trauma, right? The overwhelm. And then there's, say, for example, in a traumatic loss, so that grief is overwhelming, systems start to shut down because of the emotional intensity, right? And then the regression, people use that term, like you're in a fetal position.
Yeah.
Makes total sense based on what you're saying.
Your system is protecting you. And like like Dave Boylan, my mentor says, it's not about the fact that the trauma happened, because it happens to all of us.
Hmm.
The
right.
loss, the death in the family, the sickness, the surgery, the accident, whatever. It's about what kind of support you get in the moment to get
Absolutely.
through it. It's not about the fact that it happened. It's about how you were able to your work through it. Did you have the support? Did you have the tools? Or did you have to go into that, fear paralysis state in order to survive?
Mhm,
And the system will not come out of that safety state, that protective state, until it feels safe.
mhm. Yes, safety
So,
is the key.
yeah.
Um, and I know you've talked about these movements having like a quantum biological effect, on the exclusion zone water, piezoelectricity. Do you want to go into that a little bit? Because I think that's exactly how it's working too. So I'm
Well,
to hear
I
you
must
explain it.
preface, I'd be happy to go into it, but I will preface with saying that this is my theory, my understanding of it.
I think your
I
theory is correct. Can I go there?
I So I never got to meet Dr. Blomberg himself. He died in 2020, but everything that I'm learning about him through people who knew him is confirming my gut that he was onto something. So towards the end of his career, towards the last few years when he was using BRMT as a psychiatrist, he not only this whole work started with autism and ADHD patients, but he started using it in the greater context of his psychiatric practice, right? So schizophrenia, depression, everything in between, so on and so forth. He himself had polio when he was a kid. And so in his adulthood, one of the thing that got him into this was, trying to research um, other tools that he could apply for himself to help himself because of this disability. And so towards the end of his practice, he got to the point where, at least according to what I remember Kate Wagner saying, she trained with him for thousands and thousands of hours. She said that Harold refused to work with a child unless the parents agreed to eliminate glyphosate, eliminate dairy, and mitigate non-native EMFs in the home.
That's
Hmm.
Unless they dealt with the hydration aspect of this, the electrons, we're talking cellular hydration, right? Metabolic water. He wasn't using those terms yet, but I wouldn't be surprised that he would be now if he were alive,
Yeah.
right? Unless you address the toxins that are blocking the system, EMFs and junk diet, this
You
stuff
probably would
doesn't
add junk
work.
light into it now because that probably wasn't as prevalent as it is now. So that would be
Yes,
too.
exactly. Yeah, no, 20 years ago it wasn't.
Mhm.
Um, these movements, you can rock until you're blue in the face, but it may not work. It may not help link up your brain levels because these other things are introducing dissonance and incoherence into the system. So my theory is that much like the principle of homeopathy, which
Mhm.
you ladies are well versed in, of a diluted down concentration of something that could be potentially bad or poisonous, but at these diluted concentrations is healing because it brings
Curative.
the system back into coherence. these seemingly puny movements, you know, Vanessa, they're dumb. Pardon me. I'm sorry, Harold.
And they seem
They're
like it
like,
though when you're like, okay, I'm like, oh, this is really going to do something.
seriously,
But it
this? I
actually,
mean,
but the thing, like to me, the more that I learn about like healing, it's these little micro things that actually make the bigger difference in our
yeah,
bodies. Like
yeah,
homeopathy is a micro thing, and this is a micro movement. It's a slow move. These little micro changes add up to these big.
micro, yeah. So they're homeopathic versions of bigger movements.
Yeah.
And we are, by in doing them, especially when we're teaching them to an adult nervous system, for
Mhm.
sure the kids. I felt like my nervous system was like, hold on, this is new, but it isn't. It's hard right now, but it shouldn't be. And all of a sudden it clicks. Three
Mhm.
tries, and now I can rock, do the longitudinal rocking on my belly and whatever. And I'm like, what just happened here? And so my theory is that as we do these movements and we introduce this information that is familiar to the system, these movements are doing a couple of different things at the same time. Number one, they are waking up that memory bank in our water for things that we already know. Number two, they're generating piezoelectricity at the level of fascia and collagen. And
Mhm.
that piezoelectricity is charging up the water in my fascia. And that charge is going a long way towards um, breaking up any blockages in that quantum communication superhighway that is water.
Mhm.
And in the process of opening up the bridges now for information to flow properly while I'm rocking, I am able to tell my limbic system, my parasympathetic, my sympathetic, it's okay, Amanda, you're safe. You can let go. You don't have to tense up that right hip every time you're walking because you're not going to fall. And even if you fall, it's going to be okay. You don't have to armor up every time XYZ happens because you're now safe. It's not like it was 20 years ago and again, it can apply to big T trauma, but it also can apply to little things. Like one of the things that I've been working through lately has been, um, because it keeps coming back to mind is that two times I slipped big time on on black ice many,
Mm.
many, many, many winters ago. You slip, you fall, stuff happened, but in the moment, how did I deal with it? First of all, I hope nobody saw me. Second of all, shoot, I fell right on my computer that was in my backpack because it was, at the medical school. I'm going home in the dead of winter. I was like, I hope this is okay because it's not my computer, it's the schools and, all this stress around it.
Worry.
I got up because adrenaline is a wonderful drug. I got in my car, I drove home, and then many months later, I'm in the ER with sciatica. And then many decades later, I'm dealing with a back that goes out while I'm feeding my chickens.
Mhm.
So it's like, how is this possible? And so,
It's the
you know,
memory. It's the memory of that. That's
it's the
why that's
memory.
possible. Yeah.
I love what you're saying about, and you, Vanessa, as well, how the body responds so profoundly to the most gentle stimuli. That
Mhm.
seemingly like our appraisal of it cognitively is like, this is so minuscule. What? Because we've been unfortunately trained that it has to be this big impact and it has to be this, a lot or whatever. It just the most
More is
subtle,
better.
right? And the body, that's what it really can work with. That's what really impacts it. So you're basically, but what you were saying, Amanda, the movements are generating the electricity. It also is tapping into a knowing of, oh, this is really what we can do, what we know. This is how we can garner safety. It creates that energy that then it's informing the fascia. The energy blocks are starting to dissolve. The energy is moving. And what popped up for me when I was listening to you say that is, oh, well, this can then let all the cells know the water is letting perhaps it's the water, I don't know, letting the cells know that they don't have to continue with the cell danger response.
Ooh, that's
Exactly.
a Heather, that's a really good connection there that I really
That's
like
that's
that you were saying.
exactly it, Heather.
Ooh, good
And so then the
connection.
mitochondria inside the cells get the memo,
Yes.
Yep. Hmm.
and they don't start shutting down. They realize, oh, okay, no, there's new life infused here. Okay, let's keep going.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just such a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'm in awe of my body. I'm in awe of our bodies because everything that our bodies do, it has a reason.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Every symptom
And
is a reason, right? But there were also self-healing mechanisms that are just
Mhm.
amazing. So. It's
Because I've been
beautiful.
wondering, how do you turn off the cell danger response? Not that I've studied it extensively, it's on my to-do list, but this seems like the most direct or efficacious way and gentle way to start that process.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so too, because someone who's done a lot of like talk therapy and stuff like that, I think, and I've done it for like years and years and years. I found EFT tapping to also be very supportive for me. I found that to be
Mhm.
supportive because it's like you're working with emotions and you're also tapping with the meridians and you're moving emotions through and energy through. And then I also found this to be also very helpful for nervous system as well, because it's like, I don't know, my body feels, I feel it. I feel a difference by doing it. So I wouldn't be, continuing to learn about it and do more about it if I didn't feel a difference. So like, to me, it's like, I know that it's like, it's almost like an inner knowing, like your body's like, yes, this is a good direction. Follow this path. Like, this seems good. This is what you need to do. Like, yep. Like, it's
Yep.
like this intuition that you're following inside of yourself. That's like, yep, do this. So that's how I feel about
Absolutely.
it.
And it's a nice, easy tool to get back in touch with a feeling.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
remember a few years ago, early on in my journey with BRMT, um, Dave again sent me home with a piece of paper, and there was only one thing drawn on it. It was a circle with the word no, KNOW, and it was crossed out.
Mm.
And he said, I want you to eliminate this word from your vocabulary for the time being.
Mm.
Stop being in here.
Mm-hmm.
Get down here.
I love it.
Isn't
Mm-hmm.
that awesome? And
Oh,
little
that's
by
good.
little, I didn't know what he meant when he said that. That's the sad part in retrospect. I'm like, wow, I was so stuck up here in the prefrontal cortex that I
Yeah.
had a hard time understanding what he was telling me to do. But as I kept doing the work, plus everything else, things happen in a beautiful sequence of events and a reason when you're open, things
Yeah.
come. I realized, and so then I heard or I saw something on social media. Dr. Sharina down in Florida, she does a spinal flow technique of sorts. I really want to meet this person someday. But
Mm.
one of her quotes that really stuck with me was the language of the nervous system isn't words, it's sensations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is my motto now because as I do BRMT now, as I do it for myself and as I coach other people to do it, the biggest cue that I can give that is so helpful is just feel. What do you feel? Don't judge it. Don't explain it away. Don't say, oh, my back hurts because. No.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my
Mm-hmm.
shoulders are
Mm-hmm.
tight
You don't need to
because.
know the why. Like, just
No.
eliminate that out of your brain. Like, you don't need to know that. Like,
And oh, just feel, acknowledge it. And then you get to the level where you can thank your body for communicating with you. And what is it that you're trying to tell me? How can I support you? Blah, blah, blah. I look like a crazy woman walking around my neighborhood because I'm talking out loud, but there's nobody next to me.
you sound like me.
But I'm like, this is a beautiful thing. It's the relationship. The most important relationship is with my body, with me, with myself, and
Yeah.
uh, learning how to speak that language.
Mhm.
And BRMT is an easy, easy tool for that. I know there's other ways to do that. So EFT would be one tapping, but
Mm-hmm.
I love this one because you can do it. You can use this with babies. You can use this with infants while they're on the changing table, changing their diaper.
Dogs. You
Especially,
can.
especially wonderful with dogs, with animals. Yes. But especially with kiddos who had a rough birth or who have a label, so autism, CP, what have you, just
Mm-hmm.
gently rock them while you're changing their diaper. It doesn't have to be more than 5 seconds. It could be 3 rocks. Again, back to the minute, minuscule little inputs. The nervous system will take it and use it. And that's what happened, right? One of the women that trained with Harold that is in Sweden, this is the main impetus for this work was her son with autism.
Yeah.
And he's now late teens, maybe early 20s, I'm not sure, but he's come a long way. And he's not stuck in some home like so many other 20-year-old autistic men are. You
Mhm.
know, he
He's improved his quality of life immensely. Oh, I think she's frozen. Oh,
You froze just for a sec, so I just
Oh,
paused.
okay.
you're back. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so it's a piece of work. It's a tool that you can use with a lot of people who otherwise cannot follow to your cues or your instructions. So a lot of people who are not verbal. So like I always say, and I say this with all the respect and all the love, you can use it with kids and with people who are functioning like kids.
Mhm.
You know, think a stroke, a brainstem stroke,
Mhm.
or something else, so that the person is completely here with it here, but their body isn't
Mhm.
because of
Mhm.
the neurodegenerative disease that is setting in. You know, and that's a whole other conversation. Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's and other movement disorders that we drug from here to oblivion with synthetics, and rhythmic movement training does the same, and it doesn't involve taking the synthetics, right?
It's a
Mhm.
really great alternative approach to healing, that we could use. And um, I wanted to ask you, Amanda, I love everything you were saying. Now, these movements, right? This is something that people would probably have to realize it's ongoing practice, right? That
It's a
they would do.
lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a part of like an integration of living a healthy lifestyle. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, I go and learn these movements and I do them a couple of times and everything's all fixed, right? It's like part of living like a healthy lifestyle practice, right?
Well, in true homeopathic style, um, oftentimes what happens when you start uncovering things is that parts of the nervous system now wake up
Yes.
and you start feeling more. And so it is absolutely normal for people to regress in a way. I remember
Right.
one
But
friend
that's
was, but it's so one friend was saying, "Ah, I just started doing this with my husband, and I'm so happy to know what I know because otherwise I would be freaking out, Amanda, but he's acting like a 2-year-old." And she
right.
said, I know now that it's not a bad thing. He's finally going through the stages that for whatever reason he couldn't go back then,
Wow.
go through back then. So that's an example, but people start having more vivid dreams. People get more emotional for a while there. Um, Kids might have more tantrums before they become less.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's important to just, no one size fits all in terms of the number of movements, the movements themselves. There's a movement menu of about 17 or 20 movements that we go through and we pick from, but we don't go through them in the same order for everybody. It changes with each person, with each presentation. Um, it's a very personalized thing, and you have to be in tune with it yourself. And so in order for that to happen, you have to do the work yourself as a
Mhm. Yes,
and
very
so it
important.
goes back to that. It's a lifestyle thing. And
Mhm.
you do the movements for a while. And then, Dr. Blomberg would say once Christmas break comes along, because he would work with kids mostly and kids in the school system, don't take the movements home. Just take a break. 2, 3 weeks break over break, because the system needs time to integrate. The system needs time to
It's
process.
the most profound thing I think I heard you say, and I don't know if it was yours or not, but the healing is in the pause, not the push. Like, I don't know, I took that away and it just resonated with me so much and like so many levels, because it's like we're always pushing the body to heal, right? We're always pushing and pushing and pushing it, right? Like, but really it's in the integration and the allowing and the acceptance that we really heal, not the pushing.
Exactly.
That
Yeah,
the
that's not my line. I believe that's Dr. Dan Wilkie's line. He's a chiropractor out of Illinois who's also trained BRMT level 1 instructor, and he's been working in this for many, many years. He was an early adopter, shall we say. And I don't know him personally, but I've heard throughout my training that he's the one that coined the phrase, the pause is as important as the push.
That's what you said. Yeah. I took it and put it in my own words. But yeah, I mean it's and what you said too about things kind of coming back, that's a great direction of cure. And as homeopaths, Heather and I always say that. Like it's you might see, an acute come up, or you might
Yep.
see like return of old symptoms. These are all signs of healing, because the symptoms are actually how the body heals, right? So it's like that's the healing part, right? And sometimes the healing has to express a little bit more before it gets better. So it's like that aggravation or activation, as Heather put it so beautifully, and then the healing, right? So the ameliorations that
I
comes,
mean,
yeah.
that's what I'm finding myself doing more than anything, is coming alongside people through their healing crises.
Yes.
because we are so scared as a society by those crises because they've gotten labels that sound very scary, and you got to take this and you got to do that and you got to stop this and you got to stop that otherwise. No, to just encourage people for the most, 90% of the situations are activations, healing crises, in response to the body finally being allowed to do what it knows to do.
Yes, exactly. That's the safety and trusting your body and allowing it to do its own healing, which because you're giving it the right
Mhm.
energy tools and the right instruction. And I love how you said you walk along your clients, you're holding that space for them because that's the safety that they need to trust. If they don't already have enough experience of being with their body and trusting it and getting out of their head, like you're saying, and not having to attribute meaning to what's going on, why am I doing this? Because that interferes with the flow of the healing process, right? So Amanda, I'm curious, like, how do you ascertain, or what's your assessment process of your new client comes in, and of course, I'm sure you're just taking it all in and stuff's popping up, but how do you know where to go with them?
Mm.
Oh, it's a work in progress, Heather. When I first started out, I had pages and pages and pages of assessments that they had to fill out. And BRMT offers anybody that takes the courses, 2 and 3 page assessments for
Yep.
ascertaining what reflexes might be active and which ones might warrant um, working on first.
Mhm.
And I've used all of these on and off. I got rid of the pages and pages of questionnaires. I got rid of it pretty quick. As in learning how to feel and learning how to listen to my body, I'm also finding that I'm better able to like you alluded to see the person for who they are. Um, but again, like my mentor said, look at the system, not the system. I'm like, wait, what? It's like, don't look at what they're saying to you.
Mm.
Look at what their entire body is saying. Look at their pupils, look at their skin, look at their posture. Look at not the words so much as the tone of voice. Are they making eye contact?
Mm.
Um, yes, do they wear glasses? Hearing aid, but those are just consequences of a root. What's underlying? So I say it's a work in progress because I don't know that one ever really finishes learning how to read people. Some people are better readers of people than others, but I watch them walk to the office from the car. I look for gait issues. Are they walking crooked? I mean, I can, just from watching their posture, you can figure out a lot in terms of primitive reflexes, but also behaviors. Uh, and then again, in the primitive reflex, in the BRMT questionnaires, there's some fascinating questions, just like you guys as homeopaths have. Do you like sleeping with your leg out from under the covers at night? I was like, what does that have to do with anything? Yeah, for instance, the tags. Does your kid tolerate tags or not? Do they not like to sit all the way towards the back? Are they always like antsy? What's the curvature of their back, lordosis, kyphosis, et cetera, et cetera. All of these different things, bedwetting, um, night terrors. What are their dreams? Do they talk to you about their dreams? Dreams are huge in terms of what's going on. There's an entire dreams course that BRMT offers because they're so powerful. They're a
Watching
powerful.
that one.
I know. We got to get on Kate, Vanessa, so that she'll offer it again soon.
Please.
Um, I'm sorry, this is a long ramble to your question, Heather.
That's good.
They tell me I learned how to ask what or how. What do you need or what do you want from this? How can I help? What can I do for you? How can I help?
Mm.
And then I let them talk. I take some notes, and then I listen to my gut.
Mhm.
Yeah, your own intuition.
My intuition is learning how to really, really assert itself more and more and more. And it's a beautiful gift. And I'm very grateful for it and very thankful for it because with everything that I know, it could be very easy to get into the weeds.
Mhm.
And I've done that. And then it takes a little bit of extra work to get out. And so two people may come with the same presentation, but I will not start them on the same path. It'll be different.
Very
Somebody comes
individualized. Very individual.
very, and they come with the same presentation, but one of them has the whole light diet sorted out, and this other one doesn't. And so in the moment, I make a game time decision. Okay, what's obviously the nervous system is going to trump anything. But sometimes the easiest way for the nervous system to start feeling again is to turn the blue light off
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
because they're not going to rock.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a case by case.
Thank you.
Yeah, 'cause sometimes we have to start with other lifestyle things too. That could be like I like to call those things as like modern blocks to healing now. Like that's like I've
Yeah,
decided to call it that. Like if you're unfortunately eating processed and packaged foods and living under blue light and on your tech all the time, and these are modern blocks to healing. Like you said, you could rock as much as you want. It's not going to do it. Like you've got to like I even say that as a homeopath. Like
yeah,
homeopathy is amazing, powerful medicine, but it's not a panacea. Like you can't like use homeopathy to trump over your poor lifestyle. It's just it is the truth of it, you
yeah.
know?
But there's different ways to get at it, right? There's the front
Yes.
door, there's the back door, and there's all the side windows.
Yes,
And
there's always
so
hope.
everybody has a different thing open at any given time.
Right. And if maybe they take on homeopathy or they take on these rhythmic movements, maybe then they're like more open to listening about, hey, maybe my lighting in night is not a great idea. Maybe they become more open to accepting,
Exactly.
learning these
Exactly.
movements.
Well, like I said, for me, BRMT was the gateway drug to all these other things. I wouldn't have even been aware or been in a place to become aware of light diet or EMFs or
Yeah.
water if it hadn't been for this. For somebody else, it might be something else. And so BRMT is the sort of the last thing that they need. It just changes.
Would you mind giving us a case study that one of your clients, and then maybe one of or two of the reflex movements you implemented, and then how they like pre and post? I know that sounds very clinical, but I'm just so curious about the trajectory of healing and so forth.
So two come to mind. One, a young woman that I worked with over the summer via Zoom, um, who was dealing with a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of changes coming up in her life, and we just started doing these movements, and she noticed almost immediately that she was calmer. And over the course of 6 months, she just became a different person, and she, on top of it, lost all the extra weight that she was wanting to lose, and it wasn't coming off.
Tell me more. No, I'm kidding.
That's the nervous system though coming back online and like allowing
But
things to
again, right? It's a safety, these extra layers.
Yes,
What is
yes.
my body protecting me from? So now, because I still have the extra poundage myself, like, okay, thank you. I'm doing all the things. If there's anything else, I'm willing to, but thank you for keeping me alive and for keeping me safe. And I know that when the time is right, this extra fat will burn and will shed. And
It's just, I just want to just like give you a hug because like how beautiful that is, like the way that like you're saying that, because in our modern world, everybody's like, oh, I gotta look like this and da 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 da, like,
well, and for us
I always
women,
say that I got the sickest when I was over exercising and under eating and not like I looked great, but I got the sickest then.
yeah.
That's when my health crisis happened. And I just anybody brings up like body image, I like have to throw that out there because I think it's so important.
And it's a source of stress, especially for women.
Yes,
And
yes. To not
what
have
is
the excess
stress?
fat. Yep.
What is stress? It's cortisol and melatonin not in the proper levels. It's adrenaline doing what it does,
Mm-hmm.
but at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
And it will adrenaline until it knows that it gets to shut down. And when will it know that? Well, you know, so these movements are a wonderful way of, for a lot of people, and I found it with myself too. I'm not shedding the pounds like gangbusters, but I feel better than I did when I was 20.
Wow,
Wow.
that's a huge
And I
thing.
have more energy now than I did when I was 20. I don't know how on earth I got through graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
By the grace of God, seriously.
Yeah.
So I just cannot, I'm over brimming with thankfulness because I don't know if that's even a word, but that's my confirmation that I'm on the right path with these lifestyle changes that I've implemented is
Yeah.
The weight will shed. I know it is slowly but surely, but I also know that I'm in a beautiful time in my life where things are shifting because that's how I was designed with
Hmm.
perimenopause and hormones and this and that and the other. And so to
Hmm.
be able to do it in a graceful way for me is a gift because I was honestly, I was kind of worried about
Hmm.
how this would look.
Hmm.
So I'm very thankful for that. And then the other case is not mine per se, it's Dave's, my mentor's, because he's been doing this a lot over the last few decades, is he works with individuals, elderly, who are looking at joint replacement surgeries. And so when I first started apprenticing with Dave and just kind of shadowing him, I'll never forget this gentleman who at the time was 82 years old had started coming to Dave because he had a knee replaced. And at one point I was able to ask him a few questions and I was like, so how long ago did you have your knee replaced? And thinking on the order of months, I was about 7 weeks ago. I did a double take and I looked at him. He's 82. The range of motion is already way more than I would have imagined. And what happened was Dave started him. So he had this individual had his other knee replaced a year or two prior, and it was a year-long process of painful recovery, and he was unhappy. But the other knee now needed some TLC, and so he decided to go ahead and have the surgery for knee replacement. But he started working with Dave before the surgery, doing some BRMT things,
Mm.
plus other things that Dave may have brought into the mix as a PT. He went, had the surgery, and the next day, this gentleman was on the table rocking and bending that knee way more than any other average knee replacement individual would. And so his recovery for the second surgery was exponentially faster. The pain was there. I'm not going to say it was all unicorns and roses, but his attitude was different. He
Yeah.
was such an inspiration too, with his zest for life as an 82-year-old. And so that's been a recurring thing in the practice is knee joint replacement support.
Yeah.
BRMT is really nice. And for me personally, I'll give you my own case example. Remember that I started doing this because I threw my back out. A couple weeks into doing my rocking most days and whatnot, little by little, I started getting better. The first thing that I noticed, though, within days was I wasn't afraid of the pain.
Mm.
That's amazing.
Okay. I was on the floor rocking, I was on my belly doing longitudinal walking, and I stopped in my tracks because I realized, holy cow, I'm not afraid.
Mhm.
I've lived with decades of pain, decades. And I would armor up. I would tense up because I knew XYZ movement or this or that is going to cause pain. So, you kind of grin and bear it and grit your teeth and whatnot. I was not afraid.
Mhm.
And so that freedom allowed me to little by little move in ways that I had stopped moving in for fear.
You're
And then, it's like this cascade. The next thing comes and the next thing comes like a snowball, right? And moving better and easier and not afraid. And now I have had, as I'm going on this spiral journey of healing, I come back to points where I thought I was, but they're not the same. I'm a little higher up in my leveling up process. There have been times of pain, very reminiscent to when I was in my teens and my 20s and in my 30s, but I'm not afraid. And now I see it for what it is, the body adjusting, the body rejiggering, the body finally being allowed to do what it wanted to do. And there are no painkillers on board anymore. There is no painkiller cream on board anymore. There's no this, that, the other thing. No, it's just doing what it can do, what it knows to do, because I'm not blocking it.
That's so beautiful. So beautiful, Amanda. I mean, that bracing, it happens with emotion too, and the sensation of emotion.
Mhm.
I work with clients in the past traveling up that wants to be discharged and released, and we go, because it's,
Yeah.
oh, it's too much, it's overwhelming, it's scary. I'm gonna look this way or that way. And then the unfortunate thing I've heard the most is it's weak to have, emotion. I'm thinking, oh my
Yep.
goodness, how are
Yep.
we supposed to survive? But your body is like unfurling, the energy is flowing, and then it can continue on with the healing process. And this cognitive piece of the fear, right? Because the conditioning of like, it's bad, right? It's going to be painful. It's the pain of the injury or the pain of the emotion. that's what prevents healing, I think, a lot of times, is because the body energy doesn't flow and we can't, we block it,
We
basically.
block it. It gets a brace for impact.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's blocked instead of allowing. That's what the word that came to me when you said that I don't have the fear anymore. Your body is allowing. It
Yeah.
feels still safe, even though it has this pain, and it knows that it's okay. And you're not worrying or perseverating on it then either, which then makes the pain more chronic, which we learned from Dr. Stephen Hussey. So it's just like, I mean, beautiful. It's really great.
So this work can be done virtually, or
Yep.
are there times you have to be in person, or help me know how that is?
Oh, no, we've been doing virtually a lot, especially in the last few years. Nothing beats in person, obviously,
Right.
but that's the beauty of the quantum field is that we are entangled and we are connected in spite of distances. So
Hmm.
be both.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds, I mean, I know it works virtually. I've seen it on myself. I've been doing it virtually. And yeah, I mean, of course, when you put your hands on somebody else, that's a different connection, you know. But I think it's definitely still supportive both ways.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So Amanda also does training for this as well. Any upcoming trainings in the works or no, not yet?
I haven't heard yet. I think
Okay.
that I'm trusting that Kate Wagner, the US distributor, is getting her 2025 calendar up and running. We talked about it at the end of the last level two that we had to get a bunch of courses in for 2025. So
Hmm.
not yet, but keep checking back. You have to check out their website, brmtusa.com
Hmm.
and
BRMT?
brmtusa.com.
Okay. Is that the best place for somebody who wants to learn more to start, or should they go to your website, or what do you recommend?
They can do both, and you guys can put all of these in the show notes. So BRMT USA is the official US distributor, but Kate Wagner, who runs BRMT USA, also has her own business called retrainthebrain.org.
Hmm.
And so she's linked the calendars in both websites for courses and stuff. And then you can also go to my website, horaioswellness.com. And I have a whole landing page for primitive reflex integration there. And so I've linked a couple of the podcasts that I've done in the past and some of the things that I've written so that hopefully people can get a better idea of what this is there. And then, when we start working together, we can just kind of hit the ground running.
Perfect. Is there a book? I know Dr. Blumberg has one, but I haven't been able to locate it to buy in the US in English.
Yes, the Rhythmic Movement Method is one of his books. And then he wrote another one specifically for autism, and they're both for sale on either BRMT USA or retrainthebrain.org.
Okay.
Kate has done a lot of the editing for them, and because they had to be translated from Swedish.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Oh, I
So,
see.
so she's the resource for these. I know that they're available on I think they're available on Amazon too.
Oh, okay. Maybe I just missed it. Okay, great. Wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah.
Any-
Always looking to learn more. I know the brain jam, right, was also a good one to look at, right? Wasn't that
Brain
another
gym.
gym, not jam,
Yeah.
gym. Thank you.
Yeah, I've not taken any training in brain gym personally, but I know a lot of the teachers that Kate has taught. Kate is a brain gym instructor also,
Hmm.
have that in their arsenal. And so there's a lot of crosstalk between BRMT and brain gym because that is another familiar platform for a lot of the people that come to this work.
Be great for teachers to be integrating that kind of stuff in
Oh
schools.
my gosh,
Sure. It's
yes.
so needed. It's so needed.
Yeah,
Yes.
we need it for also for doulas and midwives and labor delivery nurses and then
Mhm.
young moms, that the sooner a mom can come to this work, a regulated mom is a regulated baby.
Isn't that so
You know?
true? That's such an important thing to bring up. It's like, when you're working with the child, it's also the parents also are important too to be
Yeah.
working with as well.
Well, a lot of people have contacted me for their kid and in conversation during our discovery calls, I explained to them I would be more than honored to work with your child, but you have to do the work too.
Yeah.
How do you feel about maybe doing one or two sessions, just you, mom? Let's
Mhm.
nourish you first. You might not even need a session for your kiddo because we give you the support that you need. And then the kid just kind of feeds off of that. It's
Yeah.
really neat.
Mhm.
Mm.
Nico Kennedy would be great. I'm sure you're already collaborating with her. That would be a beautiful union. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, what's in the future, Amanda? Like, where's the future taking you? You have any ideas or plans or goals or aspirations or whispers?
Well, like I said, I'm really surprised by how much I love working with other people one-on-one and in small groups. And so my desire is to grow a group coaching
Mhm.
offering. It would be exclusively online, but it's it's mostly women because that seems to be the person the client that gravitates towards me right now, but just a space, and there's a lot of these out there, right, the communities, but a space where a lot of these women who are going through the same thing can feel contained and supported as we kind of go through the healing crisis together, regardless of whether our healing crises match, right? Yours could be completely different than mine, but you have a contained space. And the one of the key features of that offering would be that we do, weekly Q&A calls, but also weekly during those Q&A calls, some primitive reflex integration work. So some rhythmic movement training. Start
So,
off like that.
so it would incorporate the rhythmic movement and
Oh
like the
yeah.
quantum pieces. Is you're putting those two things together in a group coaching? That'd be beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm fine. I'm trying to finish up some little learning modules so that people who sign up for the group coaching would have access, unlimited access to the little classes, the learning modules for nervous system stuff, primitive reflex stuff, light and water, which would be the pillars. They can do those, work through those on their own time, bring questions weekly. We'd meet twice a week or, however often they need for live Q&As and rhythmic movement training.
Perfect. That sounds like a beautiful offering you're putting together. I like that vision. I love it.
Yeah, that's my dream. I also work one-on-one because I get a lot of people just need that and I want to offer that. But
Mhm.
um, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so
Well,
much, Amanda, for your time. I mean, your work is, I think, revolutionary, and all the way you're integrating quantum biology and the other healing modalities is obviously incredibly powerful and much needed in this day and age. So thank you so much for being with us today. We're super grateful.
yes, thank you.
I'm grateful to you, ladies. Thank you for having me on and for giving me this opportunity to share the work.
Yes, awesome. Thank you.